come to the point about this food import bill, and you're always saying about agriculture and agriculture and agriculture. It's a cliche in this country. 99% of those in this country who talk about agriculture don't want nothing to do with agriculture. They don't even want to dirty their hand in their own yard. But of course, those who are in agriculture producing, they are always struggling because you could have as much agriculture as you want. If the country's consumption pattern is for foreign foods and foreign items, you could have as much growth as you want in this country. They're not using the local produce. The last time I spoke about cassava on a public platform here, they talked about it for a whole week. But every fancy packaged stuff, the more salt, the more fat, to come and harass the hospital after. And now we don't have the foreign exchange. And we are saying to you at the personal level, you have a choice. We have to find savings. And if you want to help out, begin to eat local food, local produce, and share with your neighbor and train your children that what we have local is better than what we import. These are the things that you could do at the personal level. And all those who believe that public pressure and noise-making will cause the government to turn away from the sensible prescriptions, I ask you to think again and join the opportunity, join the effort to face up to our circumstance. And if we do that, the hope is that this period of difficulty will not be too prolonged. No amount of denial is going to change the fact that our circumstances have changed. You know what they're saying now? The government preaching doom and gloom.
Agri-economist Umar Dath Maharaj says the Minister of Finance missed an opportunity to educate the population on food and nutrition at the level of the household and the importance of growing local food. However, the Finance Minister, Colm Imbud, was commended for talking about plans to expand the coconut, cocoa and honey industries.
We talk about the economic hardships. We do it repeatedly. But we have to make sure that there are people among us who do not fall below that minimum living standard. We need to protect the men and women who feed us. So Mr. Ramson just made the point. Because we need to strengthen those who are actually producing. And those things are around. The ministry does have its recurrent budget and so on. And we hope they apply it for access roads and all these other things, of course, for that enabling environment. We need to stabilize sentiment.
Mr. Maharaj said education in the food industry is key since the country can no longer focus on generating substantial revenue from the energy sector.
If you track our history in the sector, you would see that a lot of the activities that we pursue really try to encompass multi-agency, multi-ministry input. So yes, agriculture is the main remit of an agriculture ministry, food production generally, but education, there is a form to play with children, with youth. There's an impact on trade, there's an impact in finance, an impact on health and so on.
Agri-economist Umar Dath Maharaj said for years he's been advocating for a sustainable agri-development policy, and this has not been done. As a result, the country is facing many issues with the local food industry.
Consumers will always want lower prices.
Yeah.
We love the lowest prices. But the opposite is, farmers, of course, need higher prices to justify what they do and to earn a livelihood and so on, and to carry that value back to rural and coastal communities. So that cycle is something that we need to break. I think policy can do that. The concept of food sovereignty is, of course, allowing Trinidad and Tobago to position itself, to identify with our own culture and to see the things that we should be consuming in our environment, the things that we can produce in the environment. And of course, if we have, or we know that we have developed a taste and preference for imported foods and a more westernized diet, and of course we would know in the economic circumstances it is not simply that we can keep importing food, but there are a few factors at play. One is the price of imported food is on the rise, as we all clearly establish. And that is one barrier to consumption, or it will be one barrier to consumption. The other factor is whether or not Trinidad and Tobago will continue to have the established capacity to import, or its propensity to import, if we have the foreign exchange reserves. And there's a further dimension to that is, if in fact, like for example, in the wider world we have ISIS proliferating, if you saw news earlier, different things happening in some of the larger countries affected by earthquake, for example, just this week. And my thoughts on that is simply, where you have larger food exporting nations, some of them may in fact revisit their export strategy and their internal policy towards food production and food reserves, and what would happen to import-dependent countries like Trinidad and Tobago in those dynamics. And that is where there's a critical role for agriculture. In these times, of course, we hear that only in a recession or only in an economic downturn, there's a focus on agriculture. And me being a stakeholder in the sector, of course, I see it as a boom, an opportunity. Because while oil and gas was in the limelight all the while, agriculture now gets the foreplay. But the fact is, what do we have to sell? Are we in the sector open for business? And it's unfortunate that in these circumstances now, that we only now begin to talk about what we can do in agriculture. And by the time we get going, of course, the fortunes of the country change, and that's the cycle we continue to run. But if it is we are looking at the health of the population as well, I thought that in these circumstances we need to be more creative with the way we plan policy in the country. And by doing that, of course, we need to look at the consumption of sugary drinks. Just by example, Britain is implementing right now a soda tax, which focuses on the sugar content of drinks, especially the way it's consumed by children. And they are using a tax on soft drinks and so forth as one strategy to combat childhood obesity. And childhood obesity is not only a personal problem in terms of the personal health of the child. Of course, that's a very critical issue. But in the longer scheme of things and in the economics, it is also a burden on the public healthcare system and the finances of the country to maintain a citizen throughout his or her prolonged life, if they are to be visiting the public healthcare institutions and so forth. Their own personal productivity and contribution to national society is hampered, and their own family well-being, who eventually need to take care of these individuals, are also crippled in a way that they can be productive. All right?